I'm not aware of any successful organization that doesn't have good organizational structure. So today we're going to talk about that. All right, so when we're talking about the structure, there's some key elements. The organizational chart, which we're going to spend most of our time on today. You also need to have a clear selection and promotional process for members. Bylaws, doesn't matter if you're a municipal-based organization or you're a nonprofit organization, you need to have some bylaws. There needs to be policies and procedures in place so people know what is expected of them. Operationally, you need to have SOPs or SOGs in place, and I don't care what you call them. People need to know what to do on an incident scene. And then, obviously, a key element to how you structure your organization is whether it's a volunteer, career, or combination department. So the organizational chart, this is what I like to say. Do we fit them in the box or fit the box to them? What I mean by that is we may have positions that we've clearly defined the position, and then we try to find somebody to fit in that box. But in a volunteer situation, sometimes what we need to do is we need to tailor that box to the people that we have. The people that we have volunteering, we may need to alter what the position looks like. So our organizational chart needs to have rank so that there's a clear chain of command, a clear level of authority. The titles are important because they tell you what the rank is, but they also tell you the responsibility of that person. Span of control, we'll talk a little bit about that here in a bit. Number of personnel is a key factor. You might have a completely different structure if you have 100 members as opposed to 15. And then the duties and responsibilities. Here's an example of an organizational chart for a career department. In this situation, it's a 75-member career department with 3 shifts. There's an administrative staff, and you can see the duties of each of those. Then there's the battalion chief and captain on each shift, and you can see the responsibilities of the lieutenants. So this is just one example. Here's an example of a volunteer organizational chart. Volunteer organizational charts are going to be different. You may tend to have more officers per capita. So, you may have a department of 25, a volunteer department of 25 and has 3 captains. And then you just saw on this previous slide that's a career department with 75 members and that has 3 captains. So just depends on your organization, depends how you have to operate. So a volunteer organization is going to be a little different. So rank does a couple things for us. It describes the position. It also tells us where people are in the chain of command, tells us their authority level, that type of thing. Military based, obviously. We want to use common terminology for our area. So as an example, say like in our area, we use division chiefs a lot. We use captains, we use lieutenants. We don't have any sergeants. I don't know of any department in my area that has sergeants. So if your department has a sergeant, that may create some confusion on a couple of different levels. One being the fact that they may not understand what that level of authority is when you say sergeant, and then in a mutual aid situation, they may not recognize that as having any authority. And then one of the other things about rank is that, so in a volunteer situation, we never know who's going to show up on the incident scene, so we need to have a clear leader. So if we have clear rank, we have enough people with rank that we have a leader on each situation no matter who shows up. Titles are important. If they're properly thought through, they can say a lot. They can say what the level of authority of the individual is. We can say what the duty of the individual is, that type of thing. And then one of the other things we can use it for in some cases is just maybe some recognition, maybe a little bit of reward. So as an example, if you have a situation where you have a volunteer department and say you have multiple lieutenants or multiple captains and that kind of thing, you may give some people the incentive as a lieutenant to do certain things to reach that level of captain. And another way to describe that also is I took over as chief in an organization one time, and the position was a captain rank, and I thought that it had higher responsibility than that, and I had that rank changed to a division chief, and it made so much difference in that person. They felt like they had been recognized finally for what they do, and it improved performance, improved their productivity. So be aware of that when you're talking about what titles you're going to use. Span of control. There's been a lot written about this, and there's some differences between public safety and then business and industry. In business and industry, that span of control tends to be larger. In the fire service, we all know our optimum crew size, depending on what we're doing, is anywhere from 4 to 6. So in the fire service, we tend to have a span of control of 3 to 7. One of the other factors that we take into account when we're talking about span of control is the span of control may be a little bit different in a career department than it is in a volunteer department. And then a combination department, we're all over the place there. But generally speaking, 3 to 7 is where we land when we're talking about span of control in the fire service. So in our organizational chart, it needs to reflect that. One of the other things I like to talk about when we talk about organizational chart is this concept of a traditional organizational chart and a flat or flattened organizational chart. In business and industry over the last 15 years, there's been this tendency to widen that chart. And what I mean by that is flatten it out. So adding a larger span of control. So traditionally in business and industry, once you reached a certain number of subordinates, they would split that up, add a manager, and add a layer of management. So as an example, once it got to 10 people being supervised by one person, they may split that up, and then now you have 2 supervisors over 5 people each. That was a traditional way of doing an organizational chart. Today, especially in business and industry, they tend to flatten that out. So that span of control is larger before they add that level of management. In the fire service, we can't do that. Duties and responsibilities, those need to be part of your organizational chart when appropriate. Some of the examples I showed you, as an example, we have a chief level officer in charge of EMS or training. You may have a captain in charge of building grounds, those type of things. So you're going to split up the duties and responsibilities, because we all know, a chief cannot be responsible for everything, or they shouldn't try to be. They should delegate responsibilities within the organization and duties to other people, so that, when you have a problem with the building, say that the furnace is out, you don't need to call the fire chief, you need to call the captain in charge of building and grounds maintenance. That's the concept. You should incorporate at least some of this within the organizational chart. So do you have clear structure in your organization? Don't reinvent the wheel. Look around, ask your neighbors. There's plenty of information out there on organizational structure. There's plenty of things you can draw from to improve your organization. Or you can call me, text me, or email me. Now, I don't have all the answers. However, I can help you find the answers. Again, I represent RT Insurance. We have products in all types of insurance. We have some specialties, and one of those is emergency services or public safety. So if you have any insurance needs, you can give me a call as well. Thanks.